time, so keep bugging me if you can't hear me. Okay, I'm going to give you a little tour of my life. That's what I was basically asked to do. The early years, my education, professional progression, and the most important part is my projects and interests. Those projects are always going on. It's amazing. I'll tell you as it goes along here. So, my background is basically schooled in upstate New York, in the second poorest county in the state, Oswego County. We're well known for snow and apples. I was very into ham radio at an early age. Before I was 12, I had my ham radio license. And music, well, I was born last century and rock and roll was pretty big back then. Now it's not. Well, okay, career decisions. I want to talk about some of the jobs and some of the turns I took, some of the things that were really basically making me, forming my direction in life. The educational concentration was clearly science, electronics, and in particular communication systems because of ham radio. So I'm so old, I was actually schooling myself on vacuum tubes. Does anybody know what a vacuum tube is? Okay. Oh, that's pre-IC, integrated circuit. So I'm going to talk in a lot of nerdy stuff. I'll try to give you an explanation of what all the nerdy acronyms and stuff are. In any case, I'm a big science guy, any sort, natural science, physical science, whatever. Okay, this is Mexico, New York. This is a typical snowstorm, okay? It's another house. I'm not kidding, this is overnight snow. And the next morning when the sun comes out, you get to shovel it off. Otherwise, it'll build up to the point where it'll collapse the house. And this is no joke. Look up where Mexico is. If you consider the state of New York like the shape of Snoopy's head, where Snoopy's eye would be, it's just about where Mexico is. Mexico is a small town, about 1,200 people. Never did make it to that 1,500 threshold where the U.S. Postal Service does delivery to the door. And it's 3 miles south of Texas. True. Okay? Ham radio, that was the kind of stuff that I had on top of the roof of my house. And the house was a real old house, 140 years old, built in the 1850s, and had a real full cellar, and it had a real attic, and 12-foot ceilings to the first floor. And you put a big house like that, put a tower on that, you can actually get out with your ham radio. So I had great fun with ham radio, learned all about communications, about people, politics, I learned a lot of things. There's one of my heat kits. I used to build electronics. Heat Kit was a company that was formed right after World War II. They started building electronics using surplus parts they got, vacuum tubes, this, and they hand you basically a big fat manual and a bag of parts, like screws, nuts, lugs, and washers, and resistors, capacitors, you name it. You put it together, follow the instructions, and if you're lucky, it works. So I built a bunch of them. I must have built 12 or 15 of them. Some of them were dirt cheap, others were not so cheap. Anyways, this is after I got a job and started earning more money. So my educational concentration, like I said, was science and stuff. This is the beginnings of the birth of the nerd. And I will solve that. Okay, first summer job into college, 9 Mile Point nuclear plant. This is Unit 1. And I had the dubious distinction of being a warehouse clerk. Learned about all these weird things I never knew about. For example, coax cable. This coaxial cable I used for connecting my antenna to my radios. This stuff was special because it was radiation resistant. And I'm going, I didn't know that. Radiation? I'm thinking, what is this? UV? I mean, does it make the jacket not melt or something? No, it was really gamma radiation resistant or something. It was special stuff. It was fucking interesting. Really expensive. Anyways, this is where I very quickly learned that I don't like power engineering. I don't want to be a substation designer. Electrical engineering, I couldn't even spell it when I was 17. And then, I just quickly decided, this big power stuff and all that substation design is kind of not for me. So, onwards. Okay, went off to college in northern New York, way up north, where it's so cold, it doesn't even snow. I studied various different things, mainly focusing on technology. After all, the college was called Clarkson College. You can look it up. It's a university. Back then it was only about, it was 75, 80 years old. Specialized in engineering, mostly engineering. Dedicated nerd generation machine. Okay, so I got my first job in a military environment. Came out to California because if I wanted to work in New York, the choices were GE, and GE. They're all in central New York. Maybe I could have gone to Buffalo, New York, on the west side, and worked for Bendix, or GE Knowles Atomic Power Lab in Schenectady, on the other end of the state. Most of GE was in New York State, and I decided that after working a summer there right after college, I'm out of it. Generous electric, they want. Okay, so let's see if I have a picture. Yeah. I work for, right here in town, a company that built ground terminal systems. This is during the post-Vietnam War era, and we're still doing a lot of surveillance. We were launching spy satellites from 190 miles above the air. You know, we could actually read license plates in the parking lot. It's kind of interesting to see my car from 190 miles above. Okay, so after a while, I didn't like the military environment, decided to go to a commercial outfit. Again, still communication systems. This was digital microwave communications. Instead of using the analog stuff, we started using digital and playing games, doing all sorts of neat things like error correction. I mean, if you have a mistake in analog, you say, "Could you repeat that?" And with digital, there's ways to fix it using error correction codes. That was real interesting. Okay, so then I got interested in computers. T&M in here. This T&M thing stands for test and measurement. And that's the next picture. I was one of the small startup companies. This was a fold-down keyboard with a CPM computer in it to run instruments. This was a piece of test instrument called a logic analyzer. And they were able to monitor waveforms like a digital oscilloscope, state analyzing, which you have to do for checking out programs and all that stuff. This is one of the early ones. This is early 80s. The company basically invited me to come back to Madison, Wisconsin on the day the space shuttle blew up. And they said, "We're closing this facility here, and you're invited to come back." I said, "No thanks, not interested." And at that point, I went to the big company called HP, because the whole idea of being laid off was really, really uncomfortable. So computers it was. And then I did computer stuff. I taught how computers were to be repaired through Hewlett Packard. Is that what it says here? Doesn't say that. Anyways, started doing software engineering. Whoops. Software engineering. Unix was something new and cool. Linux hadn't even invented yet. And now, many years later, I find myself still doing Unix and a whole lot of other stuff. I'm doing product security. And every time you turn around, there's a new bug. And there's a new hole. And you've heard about the breaches at Target and Home Depot, and et cetera, et cetera. Product security is never ending because there's no such thing as perfectly secure software. So, okay. This is what my bio now looks like. This is some of the stuff I'm interested in doing right now, and as my career type tapers down at HP, I'm finding a lot of other things to be interested in. This organization here, EAA, is Electric Auto Association, and I've been the chairman of all the chapters that we have ever since, mainly because I raised my hand foolishly and didn't seek an exit strategy, and nobody wants a job, so I'm kind of stuck. So we have lots of people that have tried to convert cars, and let me ask for a show of hands. How many people have seen the movie Who Killed the Electric Car? Okay. It's on the internet. It's in 8 pieces on YouTube. It's a 90-minute movie, and it's all about, it doesn't draw any conclusions. It lists suspects and lets you, the viewer, decide what the story is. That really basically started people thinking, you know, some of this electric car stuff makes sense. Well, I got involved since 1998 in driving a lead-acid car. I'll show pictures of it. And basically, we represent drivers who want to do this kind of stuff. They want to rip out the gas engine and transmission and put in a range motor and drive basically for a whole lot cheaper than gas. What's gas now? I don't even know. It's like $4 a gallon. I don't pay attention to that electric. So we also tried to influence manufacturers, and that's where Plug America came along, because we saw what General Motors did to the ED1, their racing little car that they built during the late 90s. They crushed them all. Unheard of, unprecedented in the history of General Motors. They basically took a car, yanked it out of people's hands who liked it, wanted it, and we had, I think, 17 cars that were available. We actually gave them $1 million from everybody who committed to giving them this money. We wrote a big check, and they refused. Just wouldn't take it. They wouldn't give us this under guise that, oh, we wouldn't be able to support these things. Well, the real thing is they let the genie out of the bottle, and they didn't want to have this happen. Other sales would be impacted. And General Motors is pretty schizophrenic, frankly, they still are. But anyways, that's what Plug America was founded on. We used to be called an organization called Don'tCrush.com. And Plug America basically morphed into a policy and advocacy group we actually influenced Jerry Brown and some of the people in Sacramento to pass legislation in the right direction. It's been an interesting ride. So here's the websites, electricauto.org and pluginamerica.org. And here's my email. And this logo is actually the same logo that Plug in America uses. We basically crafted that thing in 1992, and it's a real nice branded. You see way down here is a BMR, circle R. We trademarked that thing. Because that, in one word, says it all. That's an electric car, needs no explanation. We're real pleased with that, and Plug in America uses it on the license from us. Okay, so this is basically the outline of what I'm going to talk about. Okay, talk about what I think is important, living an honorable life, whatever, making a better life with cool technology. I'm a technology, I like technology. So computers are amazing, and I don't like wasting a lot of things, but I've always religiously recycled and composted and all that stuff. Before the word sustainable was a watchword. And my friend Al Einstein, who I never knew, he says that everything should be made as simple as possible, but no simpler. There's a lot of wisdom in that. I have a couple of guidelines that I'd like you guys to take to heart. Toward the end here, I'll throw them out. So, okay, let's talk in three parts. First here on living a better life with technology. Let's talk first about the background, the education background. This circle here is something you may have seen before. Math is the basis of all the sciences. I mean, it's an international language. I used to have a professor in college who was Hungarian. He couldn't speak any English, but he could speak math. He says, math is international language. You learn. That's about all he ever said. We took notes, and it was a heavy-duty class. I took 8 semesters of math because I had to. And I'll be real honest with you guys. And this is one of the things for science, technology, engineering, math. If you have a class of 100 people and you have the top 10%, the real wizards, and then you have the 50 percentile, I was in the bottom half. I'll be honest. I was no scholar. I muddled through. Finally, when I got to college, I finally put the stupid guitar away and stopped the stupid rock and roll. Because I realized that you don't need to make more money in engineering than you can in rock and roll. Enough said, besides I didn't play the roll. So anyways, math is the core of it all. I took a lot of it. I didn't get very good grades in it, but I was able to make progression through the various classes, and I graduated. So that's all it counts. Sciences, the pure sciences are built upon all that, and then of course engineering is an applied science. Go a little farther here. Scientists, basically pure scientists, discover the fundamental limits of particles, of living matter, whatever. They study science, physics, materials, you name it. Okay? Engineers, on the other hand, are restricted and learn various laws and properties, and they basically build things based on the sciences that they've had, and abiding by the laws of physics, and etc. By the way, the laws of physics are immutable. You can't erase them. Some people say, why don't you put a window on the top of your electric car and regenerate some of that energy? Ever heard of efficiency? No, what's that? So it's something engineers like to play with. That doesn't work, by the way. That's called perpetual motion. Anyways. So this is all food for thought. This basic thing here, if you like math, if you're good at it, more power to you. I wasn't real good at it, and my senior year, when I was taking a pretty heavy-duty design course, as I said, I was a design engineer, the professor said, you know something, this is really serious math. If you can't do it, let me give you a hint. Find the company mathematician. Buy him lunch, or buy him a bottle of champagne, and have him solve the problem. And that was the best advice I ever got. I often ran into problems, and I'm like, God, what is this? Find a buddy up with a mathematician. It works. Okay. This is pretty amazing. The human brain consumes about the equivalent energy of about 20 watts. We do really well with, for example, pattern recognition. If you give me a piece of glass and there's a speck of dirt on it, my eyes will zero in on it very quickly, assuming I'm not drunk with focus. It's amazing how well the human eye can recognize things, but machine pattern recognition is really difficult. By contrast, IBM's watch consumes 200 kilowatts to do the Jeopardy challenge, where it was competing against the humans. That's a lot of serious refinement. We got a long way to go. Anyways, these are just thoughts to ponder. I always think it's kind of neat to realize how big IBM's beast is. It's pretty amazing. And we'll talk more about as technology advances. Okay. Now into my electric mobility. I want to talk about the various capabilities that I've seen happen in my short driving career. The Electric Auto Association's been around since 1967. That's a long time. We actually started at San Jose State, and people were looking at cars and thinking, you know, what can we do to make life a little simpler? Because these are awfully complicated. That was the year they introduced the positive crankcase ventilation valve. It was a requirement, I think. Anyways, let's talk about that stuff. Okay, my history, basically I want to compare the technology, driving capability of 3 different cars, and the overall limitations. My first car, everybody's into the periodic chart, PV stands for lead acid. This is a professional conversion, 1980s technology. I picked it up in 1998 as the second official private owner. The first guy bought it off of Alameda Naval Base. It was converted professionally during the mid-80s by a company that went defunct in Texas, and it was given to Alameda Naval Base. They also built some for the Navy, the Air Force, and various other services. Wasn't real successful. Look at this, 40-mile range. I mean, I lived down in the South Bay in Los Gatos, and at one time I drove from Los Gatos all the way up to San Fran Shopping Center in South San Francisco. My batteries were toast. And when I charged them right back up, I had plugged in the minute I got there. I had done them a lethal blow. They lasted about 6 more weeks after that, and that was it. You never get deep discharge batteries. It's a killer for them. It's like in a gas tank, you never run gas all the way to the bottom because the fuel filters start picking up the sand and the boogers and crap and plug up your injectors, and you got problems. Anyways, it was a piece of garbage. I'll show you pictures of it. Second car was an OEM, equipment manufacturer, using nickel metal hydride technology, which is the successor to nickel cadmium batteries. Cadmium is a nasty element. Aqueous cadmium, when it gets in your water system, will give you some nervous system problems. We'll go nuts with that. Depending, of course, on the concentration. But so nickel metal hydride was the workaround for the nasty chemicals in nitrile batteries. This thing was built by Toyota, 1990s technology. It was originally conceived in about 1995 or 6. They started building it in 97, 98, 99, and in 99 they started talking to General Motors. That's where this word comes from. The charging technique was inductive. Why? Because General Motors was very safety conscious. Imagine that after the latest fiasco of the recall. They said, Grandma doesn't want to get electrocuted. You need this inductive charger. There's no exposed copper. Now, you pay the price for efficiency and charging time, and it's a dumb idea. The way they implemented it in not only the GM cars, but also the Toyota cars, half the car's charger in the car, the other half is at home. Well, what happens if I drove down to Gilroy and there's no charger there? What? I need a charger. You know, it's dumb design. Every EV nowadays, and by the way, EV stands for electric vehicle, I use that a lot. Every EV nowadays has a fully onboard charger. None of the stupidity. I swear auto manufacturers during the 1990s were trying to introduce little speed bumps all along the way because they didn't want the technology to succeed. I'm not a conspiracy person, but there's probably some truth in some of that. Okay, this thing actually, I still have this car, nickel metal hydride Toyota RAV4. Still gets 100 miles range. I've got 103,700 miles in it. Just drove it the day before yesterday. Works like great. Now here's one of my projects, the charge port. Chris talked about the charge station, the SE, as they call it, electric vehicle supply equipment that we install on campus here for people who drive electric on site to be able to get a boost. You drive a Volt, different animal, it's a hybrid. A Volt can get home on its gasoline. Most people realize that, hey, I'm saving a lot of money if I charge up the batteries instead of putting gas in. Well, that's why I went with the pure battery electric cars. I don't like buying gas at all. I don't like spilling it on my shoes. I don't like hanging out at the corner of town where the gas station where the cheap gas is. Anyways, so I decided to bring my inductive charged Toyota into the 21st century. I am building a J plug. J1772 is a standard that's now been implemented on all these charging stations, including the one on our campus here. I'm upgrading the thing, but I don't have schematic diagrams. I don't have any software listing. I don't have anything. So it's really groping in the dark and looking for the right wires and checking things out. It's a challenge, to say the least. Okay, third generation car is a lithium cobalt oxide battery. It's a Tesla. Clean sheet design. It is a really cool car. I knew I wanted this thing. It has, honest to God, 250 miles range. Less if you're going fast, and it's real hard to keep off the accelerator. Anyways, it has 2 conductive chargers on board. so I can actually cram more power into the thing. And it's totally on board, and it's really good. I'll show you some pictures of all that stuff. There's my first car. 1980s Series 1 Ford Escort. Real piece of garbage. There's a company that basically went bankrupt. By the way, the president took the money from the company and ran. He's offshore someplace. I guess the IRS is still looking for him. Came from Alameda Naval Air Station. I put 21,000 miles on it, and HW means home to work, home to work, home to work. That's all I ever did, home to work. I had a real close commute. I was able to drive it. The nice thing was able to get charged at work. The boss said, hey, no problem off my back. There was outlets in the parking lot, so I was able to plug in and get a boost at work. You know, never really fully charged because I think it's up for after the charge. This is an understatement that it was heavy. It was over the gross vehicle weight limit. That means with all the passengers and all the luggage, you have an absolute max that you can package your Tundra or your Ford F-150. There's an absolute max. After that, things start breaking, especially if you start hitting bumps. Well, this was permanently, with all the batteries in it, it was permanently over that weight rating. So I put it even over myself. I took my family in it, not knowing what was going on. Anyways, it survived. I had special low rolling resistance tires on it to make it go farther. Okay, 20 horsepower motor. It doesn't sound like much. An electric motor doesn't have to be rated like a 350 Camaro. Okay? That's peak horsepower. When you go to the store to get, you know, milk and eggs or something in a Camaro, you're never using that peak horsepower. Maybe you can take off briskly from the red light and use 150 or 200 horsepower and accelerate that mass, but you don't need it. So these things are always, electric motors are always rated for their continuous duty, and that's speculative, shall we say. You know, automakers like to say, well, I got 375 horsepower, I got 450 in my Corvette, LT1, whatever. Okay, battery management system is a big thing. Of the 4 components in an electric vehicle, the batteries, the battery charger, the motor speed controller, a battery management system is the 5th thing that is now being more and more focused on, and some companies have mastered it, others haven't. Basically, this was a monitor. I had a rotary switch, and a DVM, a digital voltmeter, and I could select every one of the batteries and read what the voltage was. Well, I needed to be able to look at all of them at once, in the snapshot, multiple times per second. Can't do that with a rotary switch, especially when you're trying to stay on the road. Anyway, no battery management system, really primitive. It used what they call a buzz box. This is a real primitive charger. That was what it came with, and it was really 1970s technology. And it weighed a whole lot. This thing weighed 85 pounds by itself. I put it in something from Italy called Z-Van, and it was a fairly high-powered 5,000 watt charger. I was able to charge quite a bit faster with that thing. It took only 208 and 240. 208 is what you find on, you know, commercial sites, like here on the college, the EDSC is 208. At residential, you'll have 240 volts. Non-PFC is a highly technical term, non-power factor corrected. Anybody knows what that is? Good for you. It's necessary, and most everything is nowadays. Okay, the tires were special. They were weak sidewalls. They had bulges in them. And besides, the thing was overloaded. I mean, I ran the tires at 40 pounds, and that was probably what the sidewall rating was saying. Under light loads, you can do that. But I was brutal to the car. And it lasted, and I sold it to someone else who was happy with it. Okay, piece of garbage. I did do another upgrade from 90 to 120 volts system voltage. That gave me a broader torque curve. That was interesting. Okay. I also improved the charging system, like I say, with this Z-Man charger, and I put a better cooling system into it. Again, it was an experiment. I bought that in January of '98, and I sold it in spring of 2003 after I got my Toyota. Let's talk about that Toyota. Okay, this is, again, the OEM made by Toyota. A lot of people don't even know that this thing was made by Toyota. Here's what it looks like. Okay? You can see this diagrammatic picture here. There's the batteries underneath. And it's really good because it lowered the center of gravity of the car. So, you know, for a pretty tippy car, that helped a lot in its handling. It was underpowered. All the electronics is right there in what I call the silver suitcase on the front there. This looks pretty much like the normal control panel. This is the state of charge meter here. The green is 80% of the thing, then there's a 10% of orange and 10% of red. Well, when I first got the car, the very first day, I drove it. took it down to probably about 95 miles, and it's 10:30 at night, and I said to my wife, I'm going out to see where the floor on the car is. She says, you're standing on it. She didn't hear it on the car. Anyways, I kept driving until I couldn't drive anymore, and way down here, you can see, whoops, down here, there's a little turtle way down there in the center. This thing comes on and says, you have overextended your batteries, slow down. In fact, I'm going to put you in reduced performance mode. You can make it home, but only at 25 miles an hour max. And it squawks at you, makes a big buzzing sound. So I found out after circling around the neighborhood up and down hills, 134.5 miles was in the pack. And then it finally squawked at me and said, okay, I'm going to be gentle and roll home, beautifully plug it in. And for probably the first, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, I beat the crap out of that car. I drove it till it was just about dead, and always knowing where my charge would be. And that was using the batteries. I should have done that, but oh well. And they're not really in bad shape compared to others that I see. I have a tool that can measure the caliber of the batteries, and they're fading already, but they're not dead. This is the inductive charger. This is what sits home. This is what General Motors asked them to put into the car in 1999. For the first few years, they had a conductive charger. Toyota's smart, they're a bunch of good people. So this thing right here, the black, is a paddle which goes into the nose of the car way up there. And there's no actual copper-to-copper contact. And it's got 4 status LEDs, tells you you're 25, 50, 75, or 95% filled. And it has a lot of fans on it, draws a lot of power. And this is what my project is right now. I'm putting these 2 small chargers. These are highly efficient conductive chargers. And over here is a bunch of AC and DC disconnects. And over here will be a small Arduino board. Everybody know what an Arduino board is? Cool. It's a very small cigarette-sized package of microprocessor, really good microprocessor with all sorts of goes into and goes out. There's a lot of input and output. You can program it in high-level language. It's really a nice, small computer, very self-contained. And I'm basically talking to the CAN bus on the front here. Both of these things are going to be orchestrated using software. And I plug it into a J-plug. It'll realize what kind of power is on it, 120, 208, 240, and it will go accordingly. So that's my project. I'm developing 2 prototypes, one for me, one for a friend of mine. It's on my dining room table right now, much to my wife's chagrin. Okay, so this thing here is a picture of the software that we wrote based on the GM ED1. This is a reading of the actual state of charge readout. We didn't like the analog reading here. We wanted digital, we wanted percent, we wanted to see what the voltage was of the pack, the current that was being drawn. And if you multiply these 2 numbers together, you get this, 280 watts, just sitting idle. And let me smash a rumor. If you have an EV in a parking lot, in a traffic jam, he doesn't care. He's got lots of energy. He can make it home. Now, a gas car sitting in a traffic jam is idling. And if you idle a car long enough, 2 things will happen. It'll either overheat or it'll run out of gas, or maybe both. EVs, they don't bother. I mean, the kind of power I use to accelerate and to move is tens of kilowatts. And 280 watts, I can be there a long time. Even with the air conditioner on. Somebody wrote an article just recently and said, EVs are the cause of the traffic problem over the Labor Day weekend because somebody ran out of juice and they had to push it to the side of the road. I'm going, oh, another pundit going at it. So this is software we wrote, and very useful. We can see the battery temperatures, we can see the max and the min voltages and the average voltage of the various modules. And like I see, there's 24 big 12-volt modules in there, and they're really expensive batteries, no longer available. So when my other projects are done, when this one is done, I will basically replace all those with lithium ion because I like the car. It's a very good car. It hauls a lot of stuff. It's good. And there's only about 300 of those things left. Because Toyota crushed the rest. And that's where Plug in America came in, trying to convince them, hey, make them available to us when they come off lease. On and on. We had some real political battles. Okay, there's my current car. This is the lithium-based Model S. We've seen thousands of pictures of this. Batteries underneath there, 4 inches tall, very well compartmentalized, and of course, Tesla is very mum about what's inside. I've learned enough about Tesla and about the cars to kind of follow the patterns that they had on their Roadster. Have you seen the Tesla Roadster? It's a pretty zippy little sports car based on the Lotus Elise, I think it is. Anyways, they had 6,831 batteries, and this thing has something over 7,000. I don't know the exact number. I got thinking about it. 7,000, huh? And I learned after the fires, people drove off the road, got impaled on something, and I think 3 cars by the middle of last October a year ago had actually caught on fire. Everybody was, nobody was hurt, everything was cool. In the press releases, they divulged that these batteries underneath here had 16 compartments. I'm going, bingo, magic number. So I divided 7,000 by 16. Couldn't work out. There was a remainder. Couldn't work out size. What's the first number above 7,000 where the quotient comes out even? 7,008. So I went through my numbers and okay, there's got to be 7,008 batteries in there. And I was quickly told by somebody who knows, no, that's not right either. So I kept thinking, includes more numbers than I calculated. 7,104 works out nicely. I think divide that by 16, it's 444. You divide that by 69, and you end up with 6. Bingo. That's the number of basic cells in Tesla Model S in a small module. And they have series and parallel combinations of that. And they're all monitored, temperature monitored, they're water cooled, they've overcurrent, under voltage, over voltage. They do that really tedious battery management system, and they do it very, very well. I'll talk more about why this is so important, because Tesla has cracked the nut that other people are just sitting there going, that's an issue? Why bother? It's an issue. Anyways, more pictures here. This is under the front trunk. This is kind of interesting. There's an air suspension compressor. I can lower or raise the car depending on how fast I'm going. In fact, above a certain speed, I think above 80, you can gain about 1.5% or 1.6% efficiency. In other words, less drag by just lowering the car down. When you have like in a satellite, you have a very constrained amount of energy in your pack. You've got to make use of every watt optimally. And that's one of the ways that they do it. They make the car very slippery, they put it in tunnels. The Tesla Model S has the lowest coefficient of drag of any production car, except the EV1, which is gone, to date. And I think it's 0.24. There's some other things in here that are interesting. This may be the air suspension pump. There's a cooler, a heater for keeping the batteries at a minimum temperature. The car performs beautifully above the Arctic Circle. They've taken it up to Sweden on a frozen lake, and they've done donuts on it. Started, left it overnight, soaking in minus 30-degree temperatures. And this thing uses its own energy to keep itself warm, and it works very nicely. It's surprising how much stuff they cram in there, and it's all very well packaged and safely done. Very well engineered. This is a nerd's delight looking at this picture. I'm sorry I can't detail more what's where. They haven't told me all the answers. Okay. This is one of the other innovations I really like. When the handles present themselves, they have little LED lights, so even if you're in a dark parking lot, you can find where the handles are. So let's talk more about science and engineering contributions. Okay, this I will suggest is the reason we have good batteries for cars right now. Portable electronics, cell phones. Anybody remember the Sony Walkman? And it's still within your generation. Anyways, the technological progress is building more dense batteries. In other words, batteries that give you longer play time, longer talk time, whatever. Longer compute time. This is running on nickel metal hydride batteries. Oh, these are actually lithium grade batteries. That's what's been driving the battery technology. Okay. Now, another thing that's kind of interesting: power electronics. The early EV controllers in the 1980s for making motors spin, taking the DC motor, chopping it into AC, throwing it into the motor, because the motor likes AC. Some motors do. The early ones didn't. They needed DC. Those motors and the switchers that were inside, they were very, very primitive. They were slow. They could barely even switch at 10 kilohertz, which is audible. I mean, you can hear when it switches at 10 kilohertz. Nowadays, they're switching so high you can't even hear it. And the faster you switch, the smaller you can hear it. Okay? They switch faster, they shrink in size, basically handle more power. Okay? Now, engineering is all about trade-offs. That's why I love it. Because when I run into a roadblock there, I just say, well, one of the other variables is this. Let me leave that alone and go over here and see if I can make more headway. And it's all a matter of trade-off. Give a little here, take a little there. You know? So, good choices can lead to some of the results. And Tesla has made some really cool trade-offs. Check this out. They have a charge port on the side of their car. That's where I plug the charger into. It handles both AC from the wall plus DC. And this DC is something very special. It's called a supercharger. And we're not just talking a 10 kilowatt charger, which is pretty substantial. 10 kilowatts is more than your house generally uses. Okay, if you're baking, cooking, and running your dryer and hot water heater, whatever, then you're probably more than 10 kilowatts. But an average house will probably average about 6 to 8 kilowatts. Maybe in the course of the day, it'll use 20 kilowatt hours. That's kilowatts over all the hours. At night, generally not very much. We'll talk about it in a minute. In any case, they can pump in AC. Here's the various voltages it can handle: 120, 208, 240. From low power, 0.2 kilowatts is 200 watts, all the way up to 20 kilowatts, because I have dual chargers in there. That's pretty fast. I mean, to pump 20 kilowatts from your wall into the car means the rest of the house is almost browned out. Okay. And then there's supercharger. You go down to Gilroy or up to the Fremont factory or over 100 places throughout the U.S. at intervals of about 100 to 120 miles. Therefore, you can leapfrog from one to another. You make a direct DC connection. You don't even use the chargers that are on board. And you come in at 400 volts, about what the pack voltage is. And you're pumping in this kind of power. That is huge. 330 amps means the wire is bigger than my finger. I mean, way bigger than my finger. And the fill rate, I measured my Toyota filling at 18 miles per hour. That means an awful lot of wait time to bring a book, bring some food, maybe take a nap, magazines. You'll be there for many hours. To fill my Toyota from almost empty, say 5% full, all the way up to the top, it takes almost 6 hours. I remember driving from my house to Santa Barbara. It took me 22 hours. It was equally bad coming back. Anyway. So, fill rate 18 miles an hour versus 388 miles an hour. Obviously, I can fill, if I only have 250 miles capacity, I can fill in a very short time. Okay? This is something they're rolling out, they're paying for it. It doesn't cost a lot for them to put in a supercharger. It's a big transformer, comes out with 12 kilovolt feeder, comes down to maybe 15 amps, that voltage level. They step it down to 400 volts, they feed through the transformers into the car DC, and boom, you're done. An incredible power transfer. Why anybody else didn't think of that, I don't know. But this is really good innovation. And a lot of other people now, BMW and Nissan, would say, hey, you've released the information on your patents, Mr. Tesla. Can we get on board that? We'll see what happens in the next couple of years, but Tesla would really set the stage. Okay, just another picture of some of the guts of the Tesla. This is the AC motor. It is an AC motor. Because it's AC, you take your foot off the go pedal, it'll regenerate the kinetic energy that's in the car and make electricity and feed back into the batteries. That's all over there. This is the power electronics unit. This is all the guts that feeds that thing. Notice this is bigger than that. Together, these things are about the size of 2 5-gallon paint cans put end to end. Not particularly small or big, but it's all right there. And this is where the high voltage comes in from the battery pack, these orange things. And in the middle is not a transmission, just a constant gear reduction. Big gear feeds little gear out to the differential on the back. And this line here is kind of interesting. That's where the water cooling goes in. And where does it go to there? The center of the rotor. It's actually on the axis of the rotor, the spinning rotor. I'm going, wow, I wonder how they seal that. And the wicked thing is, this motor spins at 16,000 RPM. You don't hear a thing. It just goes, and it's water cooled. So you know they got a patent on the seal for that water line on the center of the rotor. Once again, another demonstration. This is taken in the store. It's just another demonstration of really innovative technology. People at Tesla are thinking. They've been complimented many times in the open press by Toyota, because they did the joint project, the RAV4. Tesla did some streamlining and actually got the thing to be a little more efficient, slippery in the wind. And Toyota said, well, you know, we give them a problem, a hard problem, and they solve it overnight. We give them an impossible problem, and they solve it in a week. They're really good. When you hear that from Toyota, that's a heck of a compliment. So Tesla's a bunch of good people. And Elon Musk is not the original founder. He was brought in early. And two of the three founders are no longer there, Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarplin. J.B. Straubel is still there. He's their CTO, and he's the brain behind all electronics. And I'll talk a little more about what he's doing. He's got some real tricks up his sleeve. Okay, last part of my talk here is solar power. I have this signature file, Aaron's seen it. EV plus PV, electric vehicle plus photovoltaic, equals near self-sufficiency in energy. You drive an electric vehicle car, your carbon footprint is very minimal. I mean, you're not wasting a lot of fumes, it's just zero carbon on that. Okay, granted, there's grease in there and there's other petroleum products, but an EV is very, very low carbon. And to feed that with solar or something that's renewable like wind, forget about wind in the residential area, you gotta get 200 feet above your house before there is any real wind. And besides, generators are huge, you can't do that. But there are no laws saying you can't do solar power on your roof, so that's what I did. Okay, I looked at my supplier bill in the 1998 to 2002 timeframe when I had my little lead sled, that little Ford Escort. And I was running typically 800 to 900 kilowatt hours a month, and that's what you get billed for. Average bill, probably $25 a month more than was before an electric vehicle. So I kissed off about $60 to $80 a week on gasoline and added $25 a week on electricity. And that still holds today if you buy a Nissan Leaf or whatever is out there. Okay? I did a cold compact fluorescent light conversion, saved a lot of money right away. I got rid of my incandescents. I bought them on the internet and very quickly learned a lesson. Don't put a CFL in a closet where you only turn on for 30 seconds and turn off again. Because it won't last very long. It'll last maybe 50 switches, and that's it. They don't like to be switched on and off. They like to be on for a long time. Maybe that was the early generation, but anyway. That was an interesting little exercise. I got solar estimates in 2003. First I thought I'd need 5 kilowatts. That was based on years and years of record keeping and spreadsheets. Put my PG&E usage in the spreadsheet. When I asked PG&E for an estimate, they gave me some bogus numbers. They said, these aren't my numbers. I know for a fact I didn't use that much power during the month of October last year. Oh, we just want to give you an example. It's useless. So 29K was the first estimate, pretty high. It kept coming down when I realized I could get the downside, finally 12K. Then I found a friend. I said, tell you what, will you come up from Pomona and do my installation up here in Los Gatos? He said, sure. I said, I'll get you some other comments. So I got another full install for another photovoltaic and an upgrade. Somebody else wanted to add something on. Both of those jobs are where he basically came up and did it all together. He said, tell you what, I'm not going to charge you my full price. You can have it at my cost. So I spent less than $9,000 for a 2.5 kilowatt system. That was 10 years ago, and it took them 10 hours to put it in. They had a crew of like 3 or 4 people. And I said, try to save you some money. I'll do the permits. You don't have to do that. You can come stay in one of the local youth hostels up in the mountains. You like staying right on top of San Andreas Fault. And they said, no, we're going to North Beach. Never mind. So they came back the next day after 8 hours of work and finished at 2 and were gone. And it was ready to roll. And it's been flawless ever since. So back then, they didn't have what they have now as a rate schedule. This is called E7. It's a time of use rate that PG&E hands out to people that have solar. And basically from Monday through Friday, 12 to 6 p.m., when the sun is shining, during the summer months, they will pay you premium dollars for generating electricity and sending it to them on the grid because they need the juice. Well, now they've shifted it to an E6 rate, which is from 1 to 7. They've just shifted everything. And the payment is a little different, but the bottom line is when my solar is really cooking on a hot summer afternoon during business days, when my solar is really cooking, that's when they pay me a real significant amount. It's about a 4-to-1 ratio. What they pay me when I'm generating versus what they let me buy it after hours. So anytime, the rest of those 138 hours a week, so 168 total minus 30, 138. Any other time, I only pay 8.5 cents a kilowatt hour. So that's when I charge my car from midnight on. There's lots of slack power where it turns the lights off. There's lots of slack power. I'm doing them a favor by trying to keep the grid a little balanced. Nuclear reactors, you can't turn them down in an instant. It takes them a week to shut it down. Same thing with a steam plant. You can't throttle it on, off, like you just volume control on a radio. It just doesn't work. Steam plant takes probably several hours, and whatever. I know all the details, I don't care to, but it makes sense what they're saying. So the time of use is really beneficial financially. So after 10 years of being on solar, I suddenly started adding cars, and that became a problem. Okay, during those 10 years, the cost of PVs really went down. I was paying about $4 a watt early on, and now it's less than $8 a watt. I found some places on the internet, and I was able to buy panels for 83 cents a watt. It's incredible. And I ordered them last year. I'll go into this. I had them real short time, and it was just a stunning project. Okay, 2012, two things happened. My son graduated from college finally. He was on the 6-year plan. Anyways, I decided I'll buy him a car for that. So I bought him a small EV, and that was great because he was living in Santa Cruz and had an internship at Moffett Field. So he had to go over the hill, and the car was able to do that. And then I had already pre-ordered my Tesla a year and a half before that. I finally got it in December of 12, and that's when my usage really went up. And you can see all your usage if you sign up for my energy program with PG&E on their website, and that's what I did from home. Whoa. I'd been watching it all summer long, and when I got the true-up bill for my E7 rate in December of 2013, I was paying big time. I paid triple digits. First time in 10 years I paid anything, and all of a sudden, wow, it was serious. Okay, that's the fourth car. That was what I bought my son. It was a real fire sale. I mean, they built this thing in Elkhart, Indiana. The company went out of business and went bankrupt for the fourth time in 20 years. Something wrong. This was originally what the Ford Motor Company got into back in the mid-90s. They were, I think, in between the second and third owner. They decided to work on this stuff. So a lot of things got fixed for them. It has basically the same capability as a Leaf in terms of battery capacity, but it's 1,000 pounds lighter than a Leaf. And it's a little bit bigger than a smart car. And it's a perfect commute car. It's the kind of thing you want to go down and buy eggs and milk at the grocery store instead of driving a Hummer. And how many people who do that? Okay, so that was the third car. Here's my energy usage. This is from myenergy.com. This is a month. Now I started producing solar here. You can see I'm starting almost to go zero. This is minus 13. This is plus 275. And this is where my son moved back home after school. He was living at home, and all of a sudden the usage started going up. Of course, because it was getting warm, getting colder. And right about here, just before Christmas, I got my Model S. And that's when the usage really started peaking. And I had a serious awakening when I saw my January bill. Okay, so this is what my hourly usage is, and this is typically where I try to stay below zero. I like to make as much as I use, and on days where I charge, you can see the peaks. Okay, so that's basically a snapshot, middle of March, February, March of this year. Just a good example where I can see, I can clearly see the day where I was charging. Okay, this is a classic curve, this one right here. This is with the sun coming up and going down, and see where the contribution from the solar is. These are kilowatt-hours here. This is where I've got circled here. It's quite a bit of nighttime load, because I'm charging at a low rate. I plugged in 120 volts, I'm plugging in my thing. Right? Maybe, I can't remember, but it's a fairly elevated nighttime load. I'll show you that picture. And here, of course, I plug in a level 2 charger, which is the higher power. Level 1 is 120 volts, and you can only get about 1,400 watts into your car per well. It's real slow. You get it all the time, great. So if I need to go somewhere, I plan ahead. Level 2 is what I charged with here, and that's where you can see very steep increases per hour rate. Okay. This again is my nighttime load. This is on a night where I'm not charging. This is on the order of 300 watts or so. Okay? Vampire load. What is it? My Wi-Fi access point, my router, EDSC, the charging machine, TiVo, of course, cell phone charging, clocks, blah, blah, blah. It totals up to about 300 watts per hour. And that's what you're seeing here. Okay. So, vampire load, I found out the early Tesla also had vampire load. And I'm going, gee, why is that? I'm losing range just sitting here. And they were busy trying to figure out how to do their software. And finally I actually said, let's turn off all this stuff. The guy's asleep. If he doesn't come out and wake the car up in such time, let's shut systems off. So it'll take a little longer to get in the car. And the minute I show up with the car key fob, the radio is active. This is the key fob, cute little model of the car. That's the button, opens the doors and stuff. The minute I show up, it says, oh, wake up, time to wake up. But by turning all that off, they reduce the car vampire load. Okay, so vampire loads are in houses, they're in cars. Ideally, you want a car like my Toyota. It stays unplugged all the time it's home. And it doesn't self-discharge by itself. But because there's so much electronics in the Tesla, the vampire load is pretty substantial. Okay. My PV edition, I obviously had a need. In the 3 cars, I had 134 kilowatt hours of storage. That's substantial. That's a lot of storage. When you generate electricity, either use it or it's gone. Okay? And that's something I look longingly at strikes of lightning and I'm going, how can I harness that? I'm not going to experiment. But anyways, I'd like to be able to store electricity better. Things are happening now. Okay, for my PV edition, my photovoltaic array, I partnered with another guy. I said, hey, look, I'm going to buy 27 of these panels. You want how many? 12? Let's put them all together. We'll get a couple of pallets full, and we'll have them trucked together. We can save on costs. And I found all sorts of discounts. Not using a credit card, it was 2% additional. Okay, cool. So I'll send you a cashier's check, no problem. So I did all my plans, did all my permit, and this is a PowerPoint presentation. What do you think I did my plans with the city of? PowerPoint. Did I use CAD? Forget it. PowerPoint is just perfectly fine for them. They want to see what you're doing. They don't need everything down to the micron or down to the micron. Forget it. It was just real simple, expedient. I did the permitting, I did the placement of everything, I did the wire pulling. It took me, during the month of January, I decided to test out Murphy's Law. I said, we're in a drought. I started an outside project, it's going to rain. It's just by law, it works out. I finished the whole project, it still had rain. I know, a little frustrated. 6 days a week, I was up there for a couple hours, between 11 and 3 or so. I have flexible work hours, so I can work early and continue working at night. And a lot of the people I interface with in Israel and France and other places are on a different clock, so it works out just fine. So I was up there during the day, and I worked 6 days a week and did it all by myself, except for the panel work. I had a friend who's stronger than I, helped me. So it went very smoothly, and I can show you some of the pictures of some of the graphs that okay, here's a quick math challenge. A car uses 275 watt hours per mile at 60 miles an hour. Okay? How long does the energy for an hour of sunshine on a 275 watt panel last? Any ideas? I see somebody raising an index finger. How about 1 minute? 60 miles an hour, this is another way to look at it. 60 miles an hour is a mile a minute, right? So if I'm using that per mile, that's just a minute. Well, this is the kind of number that I like toying around. If you're driving your car at 275 watt hours per mile, that's pretty darn good. That's under 3 cents, under 3 miles per kilowatt hour. And that would be about a 15-cent kilowatt. In other words, a nickel a mile. Okay. Here's some of the pictures. I'm going to rip through these. My roof, before, after. That's the garage. This is the porch, before, after. This is the old array up here on top. That was from 2003, and this is what I installed. And if you guys are curious, you'll see I was not really super professional. There's a notch right there because it's really hard to align 16 panels so that they're all perfectly in line. And I tried a couple times and I said, you know what? It's cold out here. This is not what so, done. Okay, this is some of the graphs that I got from the software. I use microinverters because it's easier to just do one set of wiring, AC wiring with DC. Okay, this is all stuff I learned along the way. I mean, I'm not an electrician, but I knew what to do. I got the city to buy off on it. They improved my final work. That was cool. Okay, so this is a daily graph. This is a typical day itself. Okay, even 7 o'clock in the morning when the sun comes up, I'm starting to generate. Not much, but I'm generating. I did have a problem. This is the actual 3 sections. I actually drilled down on my garage and I said, something wrong on the garage here. So I highlighted a couple of these inverters, and Turns out there was something wrong with it. So the diagnostic capability of having this software was really powerful. There's an example of having good software that lets you drill down to exactly where the problem was. I knew I didn't have to go up and lift every one of 27 panels and figure out what's going on. I knew right away that it was this guy, this guy. Okay. And this is before the change, and here's after the change. March 8th, I figured out what was going on, fixed it, and off we go with all these panels working. Okay. Somebody asked me earlier about battery technology. This is an example of a C-cell battery alkaline, 210 cells here. They weigh 2.5 kilograms. I don't think you read that or not, but it says 2,500 grams. This is a lithium-ion pouch pack, 95 grams. The same energy in this as in that. We've come a long way, and we're continuing to make progress. So, here's something for solar. Watch this company, First Solar, they're local here. Cadmium telluride, it's a very complicated formula, it's non-silicon based. They've got their efficiencies up above where silicon is, and when they make a change, an improvement, they don't go 0.4% or something, they go 2 or 3%. This is a company I think is going to have some serious breakthroughs real shortly. Okay, with all my storage capability in my cars, vehicle to grid is what I want to do. I want to connect my car to the grid, and I want to use it for storage. And when the call comes from the power company, you need some of your power. I would like to get paid for that. And that's where the future is. The PUC policies aren't even set up yet. There's a lot of stuff up in the air. The power companies don't know how to deal with all this stuff. In fact, power companies are having real difficulty with distributed generation. That's when I have solar power plants on my neighbor's house, and my house, and everywhere else. They like the concept of centralized, Hunter's Point coal-burning power plant who come to us for power. They don't like this other independence. Get used to it, guys. The days of yore are over. So I'm going to help utilities. Price differential gives me a chance to break even with some of my investments. And by the way, summer of 2008, I did really well in terms of buying back my investment in electric vehicles. The gasoline was over $5 a gallon. I was driving right by those gas stations, occasionally stopping to wash my windows. Okay, Texas has an interesting program. Okay, since I wrote this up. Free nighttime power for EV owners. They have so much access, they say, here, charge for free. That's really cool. Okay, this is something from my friends at NRDC. This is a history from 1976 to way out in the future. This is gas prices. There's some historical references. Katrina's in there. This is electricity prices by contrast. Now up here past the line, which was supposedly when this was data stamped, this is the upper limit, and this is the lower limit for gasoline prices. That's a huge swing, anywhere between just over $5 a gallon to down as low as 2.25. Way out here you can see the differentiation on electric power, not much. We're done? We're done.
All right, so that's it for now. But if anyone has any questions, Ron's going to be here hanging out afterwards. Please come up, and I'd love to answer questions.
Read that.
Yeah. There'll be cards. Remember, if you need attendance, make sure you grab a card at the end. Yeah, everyone, please give Ron a